So we're here with another one of our member interviews, and I'm excited about this one. This one's with Kelley Chestnut, who is the one of our worship leaders, and is really the only worship leader that's been a part of North Church from the very beginning. So she's been there as part of the core team, and her and her husband Abe were part of the core team and continue to serve and be at North Church. But Kelley has an incredible voice. If you've ever been in North Church before, you've enjoyed and experienced the beauty of her voice. And it's one of the things that I've grown to admire you about you, Kelley, is that you're always willing to use your gift. And you've got lots of gifts, but the one you use in the church most frequently is your voice, and not just your voice, but your passion for worship. But I feel like there's a sense that I have that you have that it's really about God has given you a gift and you want to use that gift for his glory. First of all, is that true? And if so, can you kind of talk about that a little bit?
Yes, I will talk about it a little bit. So talking is not really my thing, but I'm going to give it my best go here.
So just sing it then. That would be even better for all of us.
Are you ready? Here we go. So I think it's interesting that you framed it as a gift because for a long time I fought against that idea, and I wasn't always so willing to quote unquote share it because for a while I kind of considered it as my younger self got stuck in a cycle of like doing things because it was the right thing to do, and that's how God approved of you and things went well, not necessarily doing things because I wanted to be getting closer to God. Basically, it was because I had to do these things, so I did these things. That kind of played itself out in my school, in my home life, and my religious life with God. It made me miserable. It made me angry. Made me feel defeated and hopeless. And like that's kind of where worship music, like true worship music, entered into my life. And the truths that the word spoke to me, and the truths that coupled with sermons and reading the Bible and prayer, kind of led me to this understanding that God doesn't change. He doesn't stop running after me. No matter how many times I get something in the right column, doesn't affect the way that he cares and loves about me. And that when those truths begin to ring true in your life, that you really can get to a place of worship where the gift that then becomes not me trying to offer something to people, but more just trying to spend time with God and hope that that helps people also find God, if that makes sense.
That makes perfect sense. And it's very interesting that you would say that, because now I don't know that I've really even thought about this, but you essentially found the truth of the gospel through worship, right?
Very much so. Yeah, very much so.
Wow, that's really cool. And I think especially for those that are musical, or maybe even not just musical but artistic, can sense that. And there's a lot of people out there, especially people that are engaged with church, that feel like that they need to perform or perform well to be able to be pleasing or accepting to God. But that's really cool. I'm glad you said that. Another thing that I admire about you is your constant desire to learn. You're a preacher's dream, by the way, and that like it's always good, and other preachers, or other, even just you're a teacher, so you know this, when you feed off of energy that's coming from people that are like engaged, and so like when a pastor sees someone that's engaged, you feed off of the energy, and I feed off of your energy, but more than that, like in conversations that we have outside of church after Sunday morning service is over, or maybe even the next Sunday morning when we're preparing for worship, or throughout the week or in community group or something like that, like you've taken some of the things that I've spoken and gone to a deeper place with it. And I think that there is, at the heart of worship is this position of learning, and maybe that's because you're a teacher, or maybe it's because of just who you are, maybe it's a conglomeration of all of those things, but I have a sense that you have this desire to learn, and that comes from a place of putting yourself in a place of worship, like I'm below you, God, and there's something for me to learn from who you are. um, can you talk about how that's developed in you? Is that a real insight that like I have about who you are?
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy that that's how it comes across, because that is how I feel. Um, so I was thinking about this question a little bit, and I just, like, the thought that came to my mind is that um, when you're like smacked in the face with the enormity of God's love for you, um, that there's really nothing to do but worship. So I can feel and see him everywhere in every aspect of my life, and so I just try really hard to give him glory and give him praise at every point. And that looks a lot different in a lot of times, but most often for me, it looks like worshiping and singing. Um, but worship doesn't look just one way. It can be, I've seen people in my life that have the ability to worship through a lot of different means. My husband does it through wisdom and prayer, and meditation, and your wife does it through empathy and um, baking and loving on people. And so, I mean, I've seen it a lot in a lot of different ways, but my preferred way is through song, just because of how it's always struck me at every point in my life. And it's the time where I feel like the most quiet and the most peaceful and the most at the feet of Jesus. And that's kind of how worship works for me. And then just trying at every part in my life to be willing to kind of just pause the busyness of it and just understand that everything is here and happening because that's how it was orchestrated, and then I have a role to play to give glory to God in that.
That's really good. Would you consider yourself to be a learner?
Yes, I do.
So and like I think that's kind of at the heart of worship, perhaps, or to some degree at the heart of worship. And I feel like you're always hungry to hear and learn and ingest information and ingest thoughts about who God is and what He has for you. And then the ability that you have is to turn that into worship. So uh, I don't know. Do you have any thoughts about that?
Yeah, I think yes. And I think basically when I learned that it doesn't have to be a complex situation, and that, like, we have this really um, great opportunity to just be a temple for Jesus wherever we are. And then when you peel back the layers of really just the simplicity of just being at the feet of Jesus, that you really can learn to do that anywhere.
Yeah. Um, one last question for you. So, and this can be kind of just a standard throwaway question, but I don't want it to be. I want to hear your heart in it. What is God teaching you? What is God teaching Kelley um, about worship during this COVID crisis? And by that I mean you're a teacher, so you're having to use technology to do your job and be who you are, and you're also like you're a worship leader, and you know for the last 3 weeks it's been me, you, and Josh in an empty room leading a camera in worship. So maybe something of one or both of those two things. So really, what's God teaching you about worship during this season?
So when I was thinking about this question, just two things popped up into my mind, and the first part was kind of getting back to the structure of our hearts. Um, when uh, so I teach second grade, and we were not finished with our school year. We still had big things to accomplish, and then suddenly there's a hard stop, and now all of these kiddos that are used to doing things every day suddenly don't get to do that. And so we were kind of stripped back to all of the circus that is an elementary school classroom pauses, but the heart of it is I'm still there for them and I'm still their teacher. So one of the things that I've been thinking a lot about is how this provides a time to everybody has to have a hard stop here, and it gives you a chance to um, kind of look at your heart structure and see um, where the busyness has been more important than your time with God, or where your extracurriculars have stopped you from having the kinds of connections that you should really need and have. Um, I think it gives us a framework for our worships for when we do go back to the busyness, because it'll happen and we'll all get busy again. But if we can get our hearts and our heart structure right now, then maybe we can look at those times in a different way, and build worship in a different way.
That's really good. That's
That was,
that's that's incredible. That's great. Did I interrupt you? You have something
no,
else?
I was the first thing. I think I have one more.
Okay, yeah, bring it.
Sorry. The other thing I was thinking about in all of this is that that this is a really great opportunity for the church to be the church without the confines of the church building and all of the connotations that come with that with people. And I also think that, it's Easter, and I've seen and read a lot of things where, Christians are really sad they don't get to celebrate Easter the way they normally do. But we're living in a time right now where people need hope in Easter, and we still get to have hope in Easter every day. So I think it's really important that, we frame it in a sense that, like, God didn't change. He's still here. He's still our hope, and he's still got off of the cross. Like, that's happy no matter, where we are. So
Yeah, that's really cool. Um, One last thing. I know you probably can't get specific about this, but I know that there are challenges with it with the kiddos that you teach. How can, not just specific to you and what you're teaching, but how would you lead people that might be listening to this to pray for their schools, their school districts, teachers, leadership in the school district? How would you lead people to pray and maybe even serve in those capacities?
and we would love for everyone to be praying for us. It's an interesting time, and it's really difficult. So there's no rules for this. We're all just kind of trying to figure it out as we go. And there's lots of jokes about, like, parents homeschooling and teachers getting paid $1 million a year because nobody realized all the stuff that we did. But aside from all of those jokes, like, families are really struggling with this idea of trying to balance their own home life, their own work life, and then kiddos being out of routine, having multiple kids in a house. You're doing multiple multiple types of work for many different people. So I know that families need prayer for just peace and organization and structure. And I know that each day I'm getting notes from kids saying, I just want to come back to school. I don't want to be home anymore. And so, I mean, even those guys they don't understand. The little people don't understand what's happening. So just peace, I think. And I think it's a good time for parents to start to recognize that, like, we're in it to work together. So, being willing to ask for help and being willing to be vulnerable in places where maybe you weren't before. So
Cool. Thanks, Kelley. I know this was totally out of your comfort zone and not something
totally
you
out of
want
my
to do,
comfort
but I appreciate you stepping outside of your comfort zone. The same thing that Sarah said in the last one we recorded, that she didn't want to do it and was out of her comfort zone, but she felt like it might be of value to somebody. So once again, appreciate your heart.
Great.
Thanks for doing this.
All right. Thanks.
See ya.
Bye.